Greetings, ladies and gentlemen. Hello, and welcome back to the middle of the order, and welcome to our DOPs for 2025. Last year, it was the TOPs, teams, outlooks, and projections. We did 30 episodes, one for each team. This year, they're changing it up. Not the TOPs, it is the DOPs division outlook and projections. We're talking some baseball here, and today is the first one of 6 divisions we're going over. Hello, and how are we doing? I hope you guys are excited. It's going to run similarly to the TOPs, just instead of doing a bunch of 20-minute episodes, we'll be condensing them into shorter episodes. More things on the agenda. If I sound different today, today's the first day I'm trying out this new software for myself, so it's a little different for me. Hopefully there's no issues and sound is nice and everything is good. If anything, leave your suggestions and feedback in the comments, whether you're listening on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, however you get your podcasts. We are here. And I'm excited. Hopefully the software is good. Hopefully this episode is good. Hopefully it's very different. We're coming into it. It's almost March. We are one day away from March. Today is February 28th. So that's pretty exciting. And with that being said, today's DOP is all about your AL West division. So we're going to be doing this similarly, as I mentioned, to last year. I'm going to go over each team first and foremost, talk about them a little bit, ads and everything. You know what? I'm not going to bother explaining it to it. You'll see how it goes. We're going to start talking about it, get everything started right now, because that's what you guys are here for. That's why you clicked on the video. So with that being said, let's dive into it and start with the team in the AL West that finished first, your Houston Astros. And let's get things started. So the Houston Astros finished 6th in ERA. They finished 11th in runs. They made the postseason. They were the division winners here in the AL West, 88-73. They played one less game. One of the games got canceled with them and the Guardians, so that's the difference there. They ended up getting swept in the wild card round. They were a division team. They were the 3rd seed, and they lost 2-0 in the series to the Detroit Tigers. They've been able to handle the Yankees and other teams in the past, but for some reason the Tigers get the better of these Houston Astros. And let me tell you, I don't know if it gets better for the Houston Astros, because they have lost a lot of players. Obviously, there's the guys who they got at the trade deadline who are no longer there. Yusei Kikuchi, Jason Hayward, guys like that. Their bullpen takes a hit. Hector Neris is gone. Kendall Graveman, Jose Urquidy has elected free agency. He's gone now. Justin Verlander is no longer a Houston Astro. But on top of that, the 2 big guys no longer with the Astros, of course, being Alex Bregman and Kyle Tucker. Bregman left in free agency to join the Red Sox, while Kyle Tucker got traded to the Chicago Cubs. He is a Cub, no longer an Astro. Those are all the guys that Houston lost here. The guys they brought in, well, let me tell you, in exchange for Kyle Tucker, they got prospect Cam Smith alongside Isaac Paredes to play third base, and Hayden Wiesenski, who will most likely be in the rotation at some point this season. Alongside, they've brought in Christian Walker on a 3-year deal. He'll be manning first base for the Astros going forward here. They've also brought back a guy like Ben Gamble and a bunch of minor league deals, most notably Brandon Rogers and Luis Guillermo are joining this Houston Astros team. When we take a look at that rotation, leading the way is Framber Valdez. How good of a season can he have? Because he's had a lot of good ones in recent years. He's the ace of that staff. Hunter Brown comes in the 2 spot. Ronel Blanco, Spencer Arrighetti, and then right now listed as the 5th guy, it is Hayden Wiesenski. Of course, they have plenty of other pitchers. However, all of them are on the injured list. Guys like Lance McCullers Jr., Christian Javier, Luis Garcia. Will we see him at some point? He hasn't played since 2023. And JP France. Those four guys, just to name, off the top of the head. Hopefully we'll see some of those guys coming back from the injuries. Of course, like I mentioned, Garcia and McCullers haven't pitched since 2023. Taking a look at that lineup, we got Jose Altuve right now batting first and second base. Of course, he's expected to potentially playing some left field, if not be the everyday left fielder. Isaac Paredes would be at third. Yordan Alvarez, the DH, bats third. Christian Walker at first base bats fourth. Yanier Diaz, the catcher, batting fifth. Jeremy Pena, the shortstop, bats sixth. Then you have Chas McCormick out there in right. Ben Gamel in the 8th spot left field currently, and then Jake Myers in center. I should mention that all of this is coming from Fangraphs and is the projected go-to starting line. Of course, changes can and will happen by then. Right now, the bench has Victor Caratini on it, John Singleton, Brendan Rodgers, who is on a non-roster invitee minor league deal, and Mauricio Dubon. And the bullpen is as followed with Josh Hader listed as the closer. You got Brian Abreu, Taylor Scott, Forrest Whitley's on the list there. Rafael Montero's on a non-roster invitee listed as well in the bullpen, among other guys. That is what your Houston Astros team is looking like currently. If we take a look at next year's potential free agents, right now, Victor Caratini and Ben Gamel, both expected to once again hit the market. And when it comes to the guys eligible for arbitration, Framber Valdez will also be joining the market. He's on a 1-year, $18 million deal currently, but that will change by the end of next year. And with the way Houston's been going, you kind of have to wonder if this could be the last year of Framber on the team. So something to keep, to keep note of, I guess. Moving on now, let's talk about the Seattle Mariners, who finished second in the division, 3.5 games back, 85-77 was their record. They were first in the MLB in ERA, but 21st in runs, and that was kind of the issue. Amazing pitching, not so amazing offense. But hey, maybe they did something in the offseason, if you're wondering. Well, they lost a couple of guys. Jimmy Garcia, he's gone. Justin Turner, he's gone. They non-tendered a bunch of guys, including Josh Rojas and Sam Haggerty, so they're all gone. Luis Urias has outrighted to the minors, so he is also gone. But hey, this means they got to bring in some guys, right? And I mean, I guess they did. Jorge Polanco, his club option was declined, but they brought him back on a 1-year deal. And a bunch of minor league deals. Guys like Drew Pomeranz, who's 36 years old, Rowdy Tellez, who's a powerful big bat. And they also signed Donovan Solano to a 1-year deal. So that's kind of the big headliner move down there in Seattle. I'm glad I am not a Mariners fan, because I would not feel too good about this team in terms of the front office making the correct moves, because in my mind, I don't think they are, because this team has plenty of talent. I mentioned how their starting pitchers were first in ERA. Well, they were also first in WHIP. They were first in walks per 9 and first in hits per 9. So the pitching is there, and the reason why is because of these guys right here. Logan Gilbert, Luis Castillo, George Kirby, Bryce Miller, and Brian Wu. And the fact is that Brian Wu pitches fifth in that rotation shows how disgusting it is, because Brian Wu, in my mind, is an extremely underrated player. That is a very nice rotation. But it's the offense that has me worried. They were first in ERA, but 21st in runs. Can this offense score runs when you have Victor Robles as the leadoff hitter in right field? Julio Rodriguez, the guy, my guy, he's out there in center. Cal Raleigh, the big dumper, bats third behind the plate. Randy Arozarena, they traded him from Tampa last season at the deadline. He bats fourth in left field. Luke Raley at first base, bats fifth. Mitch Haniger, the DH listed here. J.P. Crawford at short. Jorge Polanco at third. And Dylan Moore bats ninth at second base. The projected bench, they got Mitch Garver on the bench, Leo Rivieras, Donovan Solano, and Dominic Canzone. And we look at that bullpen, Andres Munoz. What a job he's done closing out games for the Mariners. He is in the back end of that bullpen. Gregory Santos, Trent Thornton, Taylor Saucedo, Gabe Spire, Carlos Vargas, other guys listed in that bullpen. And for Seattle, when you take a look at the free agents coming up, none of their young talent yet. They still have another year of Randy. They still got a couple more years of Logan Gilbert. But Mitch Haniger is heading back to the market. Donovan Solano, of course, one-year deal. He's going to be going on the market. Dylan Moore as well. So they got three guys for sure. Mitch Garver is on a mutual option for $12 million, and depending on how this season goes, I mean, $12 million for a backup catcher isn't ideal. Jorge Polanco, there's some vesting options there for $6 million, so depending on how his season goes, he could be sticking around for 2026. And then Andres Munoz, a club option for $6 million. That will be interesting to see. I'm guessing it will most likely get picked up unless his season goes away bad real quick. But, I think he might end up sticking around most likely there. So that is how your Seattle Mariners look entering 2025 here. To continue on, let's talk about the Texas Rangers, who came third in that AL West division, as mentioned. The 2023 World Series champions, so the first time in their franchise's history. The following season, they got the World Series hangover, and it went bad real quick. 78-84 record. Yikes, not where you want to be. They were 24th in ERA in the league, 18th in runs. They finished 10.5 games behind the Houston Astros, and boy, did they need to have an offseason, and an offseason they had. Don't get me wrong, they lost some talent. David Robertson gone. Travis Jankowski, Carson Kelly, Jose Leclerc, Andrew Heaney, Jose Urena, Kirby Yates, Max Scherzer. All of those guys see the door on your way out, as well as Nathaniel Lau, who got traded to the Nationals, as well as a couple other guys who were in trades. Sam Huff, they lost to waivers to the Giants. He was a backup catcher, top prospect at one point. Nathan Eovaldi, they declined a player option for him. They bring him back on a 3-year contract, so he is back and better than ever. Alongside guys like Kyle Higashioka, Jacob Webb joins the bullpen. Hobie Milner back there as well. They also picked up Jock Peterson on a 2-year deal. Sean Armstrong joins the team as well. Chris Martin, as well as Luke Jackson, and plenty, and I mean plenty, of minor league deals to go throughout. So that's how Texas looks heading into the year. When we take a look at that rotation, Nathan Eovaldi, the ace of that staff, but I am more interested about that second guy, Jacob deGrom, listed here. Can we have a healthy deGrom season? That is all I want under my Christmas tree this year. John Gray is coming in at third. Tyler Mahle in the 4-hole, and then Cody Bradford rounds out that Texas Rangers rotation. Taking a look at the lineup, this is where some of that spark comes from with the Rangers here. Marcus Semien bats leading off in at second base. Corey Seager behind him at shortstop. That dynamic duo up the middle there. Wyatt Langford coming off a nice rookie campaign. He bats third in left field. Jock Peterson listed as the 4-hole, wearing number 4 as a DH. Adolis Garcia bats fifth in right field. Josh Young bats sixth at third. Evan Carter in center with Jake Berger at first base. They acquired him in a trade as well. I forgot to mention him in the trade section of all of this. And then batting ninth, the catcher, Jonah Heim as well. That is a nice lineup, and it's complemented nicely with their bench. Of course, Kyle Higashioka, we mentioned, got him from free agency as a backup. Ezekiel Duran, Josh Smith, and Leody Tavares makes up that bench for the Rangers. And when you take a look at that bullpen, it's a bunch of new names. Dane Dunning and Jacob Last, the only two guys listed here from last year. All these other guys, they have acquired in free agency. We mentioned Luke Jackson, Hobie Milner, Sean Armstrong, Jacob Webb, Robert Garcia, and Chris Martin, who is listed as the closing pitcher at the age of 38. So yeah, brand new bullpen, and kind of hoping for a rebound for DeGrom. Hopefully he's able to get back and being the DeGrom that we saw when back-to-back Cy Youngs with the Mets. So that is the ideal and the hopeful situation there for Texas. Taking a look at their free agents for 2026. John Gray, Tyler Mahle, so that rotation will take a hit there. And then, of course, those guys from the bullpen, Chris Martin, Hobie Milner, Luke Jackson, and Sean Armstrong, all four of which on one-year deals, so all four of which heading back to free agency. Jock Peterson gets a player option for 2026 at $18.5 million. So if his season goes poorly, you could see him pick that up. And if his season goes great, maybe he gambles on a better deal elsewhere. But that's all of the potential free agency there for the Rangers. So things, could look better for the Rangers this year than they were last year, because things kind of got really bad last year for Texas, to say the least. Let's talk now about the Athletics. That's all we got to say. Just the Athletics. They were 25th in ERA and 26th in runs last year, so not ideal. They finished 19 and a half, of those Houston Astros. But to be fair, despite, 19 games back and 27th, tough numbers, they did better than I think people thought they were going to do. So, what does that mean for their offseason, of course? Because, of course, not only did they lose some players, they also lost their home. They're no longer the Oakland Athletics, in case you missed it. Guys they lost in free agency: Alex Wood, Ross Stripling, Scott Alexander. You say goodbye to those guys. Tyler Nevin got outrighted. He elected free agency. Same thing with Kyle Muller. So those guys long and gone. They traded Joe Boyle, Will Simpson, and Jacob Waters to the Tampa Bay Rays, of course. And, of course, Daz Cameron as well got traded to Baltimore. So, a lot of guys gone, but who is sticking around? Who is coming back and joining this this Athletics team? How many times am I going to say Oakland? Well, first, they extended Brent Rooker to a 5-year deal. Good for Rooker to get that handsome extension that he so deserved. On top of that, they made some interesting moves. They brought in Luis Severino on a 3-year deal, one of the biggest contracts in A's history. Gio Urshela could be mandating third base for him. They bring in Jose Leclerc. They bring in Luis Urias. A couple minor league deals here and there, but they also acquired, and sneakily, maybe the trade of the offseason, Jeffrey Springs. How good can he be at that rotation there? They acquired him in that trade, as well as Jacob Lopez. So a bunch of new Athletics coming in. Of course, they will not be playing at the Coliseum there. We'll be playing at a new home in Sacramento. So we'll see how that affects the team morale and how that affects the team going forward here. But as we mentioned, Severino and Springs, 2 new guys, and they headline that rotation. That's your 1 and 2 projected as of now. JP Sears has been reliable. He hasn't been great, but he's been reliable. He gets the 3rd hole there. Osledo Bido, I believe is the name pronunciation there, but still, don't quote me on that, listed as the 4. And then Mitch Spence, the Rule 5 pick from last year, he gets to stay in the rotation as of right now. He is the 5th guy. When you take a look at this lineup, it can be scary good, potentially. They got a lot of young kids, a lot of potential breakout candidates, guys who have already broken out. And, this offense, we've seen them put up a couple of nice games against some teams last year. Lawrence Butler out there in right field. I love me some Lawrence Butler. Brent Rooker bats second at the DH. JJ Bleday in center field. Shea Langelaris behind the dish. Tyler Soderstrom at first base. Zach Geloff at second. Seth Brown in left field. Gio Urshela, he bats 8th at third base. And then Jacob Wilson, one of the top prospects in the A's system. He bats 9th at the shortstop. Of course, he was going to have, I believe, his first year last year, but then got hurt pretty early on and didn't get a chance to get back to the big leagues from that point on. The projected bench as it stands, Johnny Peretta, the backup catcher right now listed there. They purchased him from Miami this offseason. Luis Urias, we mentioned him coming over in free agency from Seattle. Miguel Andujar and Esteury Ruiz. We saw him get knocked down to AAA last year when he was kind of being the best A at the time. Taking a look at that bullpen, we've got some additions here. Noah Murdoch from the Rule 5 pick from Kansas City, so he, could be around the whole season. They brought in Jose Leclerc. Dylan Flores on a non-roster invitee deal. They got Tyler Ferguson there, Grant Holman, but of course, the headline guy and the guy who is very scary out of that bullpen, Mason Miller, turning his career around. What does he have in the tank? Hopefully a fantastic season. Big Mason Miller fan. That is what your athletic team is looking like. Into 2026, though, they are, a couple of one-year deals this year. Those guys, of course, would be gone. That includes Jose Leclerc, Gio Urshela, TJ McFarland, and Luis Urias. And players eligible for arbitration as well, Miguel Andujar, finally reaching his service time. He's going to be 31 next year, but of course, he will be a free agent. Of course, not his first time, but, his year is done. So those are the A's currently on the chopping block, and that is your Oakland A's staff for 2025 and potentially, some of the guys leaving in 2026. And that brings us to our final team on the docket here, the Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim. Yes, the last AL West team here to talk about. They finished last in the division. A rough year for the Angels, 63-99, not where you want to be. 25 and a half games back, and also last in the division. No one wants to come in last. They had a tough season with some injuries and some guys who underperformed. When you take a look at the guys, they lost a lot of guys, decided to, get outright to the minors and ended up leaving for elsewhere. Kevin Pillar no longer there. Brandon Jury gone. Hunter Strickland, Matt Moore, Patrick Sandoval no longer there, and plenty of other guys have left as well. They also have sent away Griffin Canning, Matt Thaiss, among other guys as well. But they bring in a handful of guys early on in this offseason. The Angels were the only team making some moves. They traded for Jorge Soler before November even hit. This was on Halloween, the first kind of move of the offseason. The Angels traded for Jorge Soler. Scott Kingery got acquired a few days later, and by a few, I mean the very next day. They claimed Ryan Noda off of waivers from the Athletics. That could be a sneaky pull right there. They signed Kyle Hendricks, Travis d'Arnaud, Kevin Newman, Yusei Kikuchi, Carter Kieboom on a minor league deal. That could be an interesting one right there. J.D. Davis on a minor league deal. Tim Anderson on a minor league deal. They also brought in Yoel Moncada and Kenley Jansen to kind of round up their offseason here. So they could have a very interesting lineup and a very interesting team for 2025. When you look at that rotation, Yusei Kikuchi is now the ace of that staff. He is listed as the 1. Jose Soriano, Tyler Anderson, Kyle Hendricks, and Reed Detmers is what that rotation looks like currently. When you take a look at the lineup, they have Mike Trout leading off, and like DeGrom, a healthy Mike Trout would feed family, so hopefully we can get that, because I think if Mike Trout has a healthy season, this guy can still easily put over plus 40 home runs and be a huge contributor to this team, and kind of the difference maker for the Angels, and kind of has been for previous years. They can never get enough talent to get him into the postseason, though. Luis Rengifo at second base, Taylor Ward at left field, Jorge Soler DHing, Nolan Shanuel at first base, Logan O'Hoppe at catcher, Yoel Moncada at third, Joe Adell will be taking over for Trout in center as he moves over to right field. And then they have Tim Anderson listed as the shortstop, currently on a non-roster invitee deal because Zach Neto will be starting the year on the IL. Taking a look at that bench, Travis d'Arnaud, the backup catcher. JD Davis is listed here. He's on a non-roster invitee, so we'll see about him. Kevin Newman and Mickey Moniak is how the bench goes about looking. Going back to the IL really quickly, Robert Stevenson as well. He's on the IL. Tommy John surgery, won't be around much this year, if at all. So, what does that bullpen look like? Well, they got Jose Suarez back there. They got Brock Burke. They brought in Kenley Jansen. They bring in Garrett McDaniels in the Rule 5 draft from the Dodgers, so he's going to be around there for the year. And of course, their flamethrower, Ben Joyce, the guy who says that he thinks he can get up to 107 one day. Right now, they have Jansen listed as a closer. You know, of course, Ben Joyce, young, not even 25 years old. We'll see how he ends up kind of adjusting into another year into the big leagues here. And, you know, I'm sure there'll be some switching around between Kenley and Ben Joyce, who closes, who sets up. But, you know, by putting Kenley, a leader kind of and a veteran guy who's closed out plenty of games before, you know, putting him as the closer gives Ben Joyce a chance to, you know, relax a little bit, take it easy, work through whatever kinks he may or may not have, and kind of build up that confidence entering his second big league year. So that's what the Angels look like for 2025. When you take a look at their 2026 free agency, that includes guys like Tyler Anderson, Kenley Jansen, Yoel Moncada, Kyle Hendricks, and Luis Rengifo, who will be finishing up his service time and head to the free agent market for the first time in his big league career. They also have a couple of club options on Kevin Newman and Jose Quijada in the bullpen there. So depending on how their seasons go, could be around for 2026 or could be released by the Angels. So that is what we're looking at, and that is all the teams in the AL West. How are we feeling about that? I feel pretty good. I think, you know, we're about almost half an hour in already. We've gotten through all the teams a little bit. Now we just get to talk some baseball a little bit, talk about these teams and the divisions and how it looks. And this is what I'll say about the AL West division, right? Because you got to go back all the way to 2017 when the Houston Astros, they won their first division in their history. Not only that, they went all the way to win the World Series, asterisks, however you want to look at it, sure. But since then, in 2017, we're talking about an Astros team that has won the division essentially 7 straight years. Of course, 2020, Oakland, the Athletics ended up taking the division. But of course, the Astros did get the last laugh because these two teams met in the ALDS, and the Astros beat them in the ALDS 3-1 in a 4-game series there. The Astros have been this dynasty for the last 8 years. You know, they haven't always come out on top. They've won the World Series. They've lost 2 World Series. They've won 2 World Series. We've seen them come out on top at times and sometimes not. And look, this is what I'll say. That the Houston Astros are they're a different team than they were. And that's without stated, because now you've gone from a team that in its heyday had Correa and had Springer and Bregman, and now Kyle Tucker has kind of replaced some of those guys among other talent like Jeremy Pena. But now you got a team where Jose Altuve and Yordan Alvarez are kind of the guys left, and that's just what I'm worried about for the Houston Astros going forward here, is because I don't know if they have what it takes to, stay atop. I mean, they lost the Tigers in the postseason last year. And I mean, no offense to Ben Gamel, but I don't know if Ben Gamel is starter material for a top team in the AL West. And I mean, that's just kind of my concerns. I mean, I haven't looked at the National team this not bad, because they still have plenty of top-tier talent. Remember, they brought in Christian Walker, Isaac Paredes. He mashes the ball down the right field line, and that could be, easy home runs for him with the Crawford boxes out there in left field. So, I mean, the guys they brought in, can Paredes be the replacement for Bregman? It's going to be difficult. On paper, it's going to be tough. Could he do it? Yeah. You know what? He 100% could. But will he? I'm going to scratch my head and hold my opinions until I can see it. But for now, I mean, Christian Walker really can't replace Kyle Tucker. I think, it's a huge loss to trade him away. The rotation, Framber Valdez, what does this mean for him next year? Because that's a big question mark back there. But he's a top-tier talent. Of course, Josh Hader, top-tier talent. They traded away Ryan Presley. Not sure if I forgot to mention that. I remember he's no longer with the team as well. So, I mean, the Astros are still a good team, but they're just not the same team they once were. That dynasty's kind of over. So it's just something to keep your mind for, entering 2025 here. I mean, I still have faith in the Astros, maybe not to the same extent that, you once had. But, Seattle is I guess, the second team here we're talking about. And I guess the big thing is, hey, we finished the season in October, and here we are back in March, and the team is the same. And they had a strong start to the season. Remember, they were leading the division. They were above the Astros. The Astros were not good. And then it completely switched, and the Astros got caught on fire. Seattle went ice cold, and you saw one team go all the way to the top and one team drop all the way past the bottom there. They missed the wild card by one game to the Tigers and to the Royals. It was just a catastrophic end to the season, kind of like we saw with the Twins, I think last year or 2 years ago. I forget which season it was. But listen, the rotation is as solid as it's going to get. Logan Gilbert, Luis Castillo, Kirby Miller, this is amazing. The bullpen, these guys come out and do it. The lineup is the exact same. The only addition here is Donovan Solano, and he's on the bench, according to Fangraphs. That move does not win you that extra game to make you into the postseason. And by the way, other teams got better, believe it or not, because that's what you're supposed to do in the offseason when you're a good team. And for Seattle, they're a great pitching team, but, without the offense, they're going to finish 83 and something and miss out on a division and miss out on a wild card, because that AL East is a very good division, and that AL Central is slowly getting better and better. So if I was Seattle, I would be pretty frustrated with the offseason that we had. I think more moves should have been made. Something to keep an eye for as the season gets going, because I think we'll see, a Mariner team either get hot right away and be led by their pitching, or, a team that will struggle. Because, there's a lot of time the saying is the best defense is the best offense. It doesn't work the other way around. If you can't score runs, you can't win games. Because if you can hold a team for 8 innings, but if you can't score a run in that 9th inning, they score that run, guess what? 1-0, final, loss. You could do that over and over and over. The Seattle Mariners need to put runs on the board. And that's what's going to be the difference between last season and this season. And without making any additions offensively, besides Solano, it's going to be tough in my mind. Because teams like the Astros, even though they lost Bregman, even though they lost Tucker, is still a better team offensively. They brought in Christian Walker. They bring in Isaac Paredes. And I mean, of course, Texas, remember, they're a year removed from the World Series. They had a down year last year, no doubt about it. Guys were hurt. Guys weren't playing up to full potential. But even with that, they still almost got back to 500. They were finished 78 and 84. The lineup, I would, any day of the week, take Texas's lineup over Seattle. Simeon, Seager, Jock Peterson, Dos Garcia. There's power. There's contact. There's everything that you love. And not to mention, Seattle's rotation may be one of the best in baseball. If you have Jacob deGrom right and Nathan Eovaldi killing it, you guys are winning games. And I think Texas, with the moves made, I think they had a really strong offseason. And I think that with the Astros kind of stumbling, we'll have to see what the Astros look like. But this could be right for Texas for the taking again this year. So will we see another division go the Astros' way? Will we see Texas take it over? Could Seattle figure out a way to get some offense and and elevate them? Those are kind of the questions here for the AL West division. Not to mention the Athletics. Hey, they should not be good. They've made a nice couple of signings. Of course, the rotation's a lot better. The bullpen's a little bit better. But it's these young talents. It's like, okay, what do you got from these guys? Because we saw these guys put up shows last year. Lawrence Butler, Rooker, Blade, Langeliers. These are guys who are starting to make a name for themselves. A bunch of first-round picks that the A's have been stocking up. Of course, what kind of season they're going to have in Sacramento. They're going to be homeless a little bit. It's going to be a tough year for Oakland in that regards. And it's going to be a mental game for these players. And if they can withstand this and withstand, these playing conditions and how they're going to have to be coming to the ballpark for home games and less fans in attendance. Like, if they can get through all that, I don't see why the Athletics, could be a sneaky dark horse team for a wild card. I'm not going to say the division. I will find it very unlikely that, all of Houston, Seattle, and Texas, blow away divisions and blow away games, allowing the Athletics to pass them all. I could see the Athletics finishing second. They would need a lot to go right for them, but it's 100% doable. Something to keep an eye out for there. And lastly is the Angels. And they're in a similar position to Oakland where they could have a lot of fun this season, and it can be, a good year. They brought in a lot of talent. Yusei Kikuchi, Hendricks, d'Arnaud, Jorge Soler, Yoan Moncada. What kind of juice do these guys have left in them? Of course, we've seen their careers skyrocket. We've seen them plummet. If the Angels can tap into any potential that these players still have and have Mike Trout healthy, who knows what could happen for this Angels team. We always point to the rotation being a factor of why the Angels aren't good. And as much as I do love Kikuchi, the fact that he's considered the ace of this staff, it doesn't hold much favor because realistically, you go to Seattle, you take Brian Wu, who is in the fifth hole in that rotation, you put him on this Angels team. I think Brian Wu is that ace of that staff, So, rotation, not shiny. Bullpen, Kenley Jansen, Ben Joyce, plus. So, there's that. Mike Trout in right field, if healthy, that's the difference, is Mike Trout. And it's always going to come down to Mike Trout with this Angels team. But if they're just in a tough division because the Astros will be good, and I think the Rangers will be better, and I think the Mariners, despite not making any moves offensively, they still have the pitching that Angels don't. And I think that kind of is part of the difference. So, at the end of the day, I think it's going to be tough for these teams to, get past those top three. It basically comes down to, if I'm looking at the AL West division, there's a top three in the Astros, the Mariners, and the Rangers, and then there's a bottom two in the Athletics and the Angels. Can one of those two teams sneak their way into the top three and move somebody out? Absolutely. 100%. It's baseball. Anything can happen across 162, but the thing is, it is 162, and across 162, I don't, take the Athletics to win the division. I'm not taking the Angels to win a division, to say the very least. So that's the stance there, and that is your AL West. So that brings us to the over and unders for these 5 teams here, and kind of the end of the DOP here. Hopefully things went well. Let's start with the Angels, who come in at 72.5, and the Athletics, who come in at 71.5. So similar 1-game difference. And, the Athletics were a better team. I think they got better. And, I think 72 games, it's a realm and it's a possibility. You got to have things go right. Same can be said for the Angels, but realistically, I don't know if Mike Trout will stay healthy. I don't know if these guys they brought over, like Moncada and Soler, are those guys still. So for the Angels, I think the under is very realistic here, and I think for the Athletics, you know what? I'm going to bite the bullet, and I'm going to take the over here. I think the Athletics could surprise us this year. Hopefully, that's the hope. And then when you go to the top 3 here, the Mariners are at 84.5, the Astros are at 86.5, and the Rangers are at 85.5. So a difference of 2 games, and I mean that's the difference between these these 3 teams. It's gonna be a dogfight. Can Seattle's pitching pass these Houston teams in Texas and the Astros and the Rangers? Do the Rangers have that bounce back? Are they now the team to beat in the AL West, or do the Astros still have another one in them? I might not like the move of trading away Kyle Tucker. I think Kyle Tucker is a huge asset to a team. Of course, losing Bregman, it's not the same Astros team, but until we see differently, I still think the Astros are going to, come away with the division here. That's kind of my pick. We'll see, what happens when we actually do our prediction episodes and our projections, before the season starts here. But for now, I think the Astros will come away with the division, so I'm going to take the over for them at 86.5. I think the Rangers can be very close, potentially be a wild card. So at that 85.5, I will be taking the over for the Rangers. And as much as I love Seattle's staff, no off-season moves does not sit right with me, and you cannot win a game if you can't score runs. We saw them be able to not score runs, so it's something that I am concerned about for Seattle. I'm taking the under with the Mariners. I think this season could get ugly for them. Their rotation's going to have to put in a lot of extra work, so it's something to keep an eye. You never know, but it's going to be interesting to see how their offense goes here in 2025. So off the top of my head right now, if I was going to say something, it'd be Houston 1, Rangers 2, Angels 5, and then, low-key, I think the Athletics could come 3rd and Seattle come 4th. Let's just have a little fun, do a little sprinkle of you never know here. I'm more optimistic about the Athletics season than I am the Mariners season. So that's what I'm going to say about that. And that's pretty much how we're going to wrap up today's episode. There's not much left for me to say here. About 40 minutes. I don't know if I'm going to try to shorten these up going forward here. This is, of course, the first one that I'm doing. So let me know if you found it too long, if you want me to remove, certain parts and talk more and about, how my thoughts about the teams going forward. I have no idea. Hopefully that everything comes out well and you get this episode and everything's perfect. I'm recording this a little bit late at night, so I'm a little tired here as well. But that is the AL West division. That is our first DOP. If you have a division that you want to see sooner than later, let me know. Of course, things will change in spring training as players play. We've seen a couple injuries. We've seen a couple of guys break out already. So, things to keep. I keep saying things to keep an eye out for, but you never know. Anyways, I appreciate you all. Thank you so much for listening to today's episode. Of course, the next DOP happening on Monday. That's in a short 2 days, a short weekend away. So I will see you on Monday.